Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Travel Tech Podcast, the place where we discuss the intersection of travel, aviation, and AI. And this week's guest is Christopher Olivares, a fellow solopreneur who has created a new business, a new startup focused on online travel use cases. Got a fascinating story. It's been an amazing discussion with him, and I really hope you enjoy the conversation. This is brought to you by Airside Labs. That's airsidelabs.com. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and send me as much feedback as you like. I really enjoy reading your comments, messages, suggestions for future guests to have on the podcast. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get to it. So, hey, Christopher, welcome to the Travel Tech Podcast. It's great to see you again.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm really looking forward to talking about travel and technology, and in particular your startup, and learning all about it and sharing sort of some of the ideas and concepts with our listeners and viewers. I'm wondering, perhaps, Christopher, if we could, before we get onto your business side, I wanted to perhaps we could give the viewers and listeners a bit of an introduction to you and your background and your journey before launching your startup and your work you worked at OECD, as I understand, but I'd love to hear your background stories in your own words. How did you end up in the travel business?
Sure. Well, first, thanks for having me. And we were talking about this, but it's a real pleasure to be speaking with you, because the Travel Tech Podcast has actually been one of the places where I learn as a very newcomer to this industry, kind of what's going on, the stories, the kind of histories that you've discussed with some of your guests. I'm thinking especially of Eric Leopold. Really fascinating to hear about the barcode and how that changed, and today technology is such a complicated thing, and yet a barcode is so simple and so efficient. So it's very interesting to look at all these different levels. So pleasure to be here.
Hey, thanks, man. That's great. I love it. That's brilliant. So, sorry. Please continue.
So I'm originally from Texas, and during my university time, I was very idealistic and had wished to be a diplomat for the U.S. government.
Wow!
And found myself thinking, okay, I'll try to live abroad for a while, teach English, which I did for 3 years. Some in Japan, some in Spain, and kind of get the experience necessary to do that. And then over that time, so this was about 10 years ago, around 2016, developments made me think maybe I don't just want to work for one country's political perspective on things. So I wanted to go into a multilateral organization and kind of directed myself towards furthering my studies in international affairs and economics. And then managed to land an internship at the OECD in Paris, and was there for 4.5 years, first working on internal ethics and then later on education policy, kind of some broader education policy, and then also later some of the key statistical indicators that OECD publishes every year on schools and teacher remuneration and things like this. So when it comes to discussing how you define things in a data set, like how many passengers fly per year, and coming to a common standard, it's something that we experience at OECD with how do you count a school, for example? Those data questions are I guess transversal.
Well, actually,
so that brings me here. Yeah.
How do you count a school?
It's a question that I go back to your conversation with Eric. But when you have multilateral organizations, in the case of IATA, you're talking about airlines being the members. In the case of the OECD, it's the countries. And they each have their own reason why they want to define something a certain way, why they wish it's counted a certain way. You have working groups and regular meetings very slow process. And ultimately, you can potentially just not have a definition of a school and don't have a count. So when I left, there was still not a single definition of what a school was or how to count them. But we do know that they exist, and they're full of students and teachers. But,
It's a classic data challenge, isn't it? We could say, we know they exist. However,
yes,
we cannot count them officially.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I was leaving the OECD and, kind of coming back from that original goal, let's say 10 or so years ago of wanting to work in diplomacy. The kind of life and career path that it took me on pushed me to different countries. I was in, like I said, Japan, Spain. I lived in Italy for a while, and I live in France. And the thing that kind of connected all of them was my life depended on getting between places by plane. And before I wanted to be in some kind of foreign service or diplomacy, I, as a child, had wanted to be a pilot, and then turned out I was colorblind. So I remained fascinated with planes and aviation all my life, and then suddenly realized, okay, maybe the way that I can do something with that and touch that universe would be through trying to make some tool that I would use, or that my friends would use to make it cheaper to travel.
No, I get it. So you experienced as a traveler for your whole career with that international focus, and experienced the problem challenges directly. And as a data guy, I guess you then took that step. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. It's the original idea for Elyo, which we'll talk about later on. It came when I was living in Spain, and I had a year-long Fulbright English teaching fellowship to do there, and I wanted to visit around, and the price of a AVE ticket from Madrid to Barcelona was close to 100 euros, let's say. And then I looked online, and there were Ryanair flights to go to Poland for 15 euros. And I was like, why am I going to spend so much to go so close when I can go so far for so much less, Mm-hmm. And then started to have friends in different places and realized, like, it would be really interesting to be able to meet friends in a third city. Excuse me. Pardon. Sorry, I'm in France. Be cool to meet friends in a third city. And, that's a question you can answer. Like, what's the cheapest city that you share in common from your two origins? And had been wanting to make, yeah. So this was the very original idea some 5 or 6 years ago, was, take a sample of common destinations between two origin cities and do the flight searches for all of them, add them, and then, figure out which is the cheapest meeting point. But that's obviously a very time-intensive task, to do the search. Let's say you want to take a sample of 10, that's 20 searches that you need to do.
Yeah.
Right. And so I said, well, clearly, surely you could have a computer do that more easily. And then by the time I got the chance to shift career and work on that, we were in the earliest acts, the opening act of widespread use of generative AI, and the way that can weave into decomposing the intent of the traveler into searches. It kind of all lined up at the same point there for me.
Yeah. Well, look, maybe we could just dwell on that moment and that decision point that you in your life. I think from some of the other episodes and the discussions that we've been having, generative AI does seem to have unlocked or unleashed a lot of innovative ideas. Lots and lots of people have changed careers. That's what happened to me as well. I left the corporate job a similar time frame. So perhaps you could rethink, talk us through that thought process. Was it one thing in particular with generative AI in terms of that time frame that you latched onto, or if you're happy to share what led to that big decision to make a startup?
Well, it's an interesting question. I remember there's another podcast called This American Life, talking about just it's from NPR, weekly for more than 20 years now. This podcast has been there, and they had an episode where one of their contributors was talking to ChatGPT 2, I think, or 2 point something, and they showed how, non-functional it seemed. And this must have been around, I want to say 2020, 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, that's a funny thing, but I always learned funny things from this podcast. So, okay. And then come towards 2023, it's something that we're talking about as a mega trend from the perspective of the OECD and the policy work that we're looking at. I simultaneously had said that I wanted to go back to school. And so I'm currently doing an executive master's at Dauphine here in Paris in statistics and artificial intelligence, because there were many roles or projects that I wanted to work on, but because my background wasn't strictly or purely mathematical, I was just kind of out of many long lists. And so I said, okay, I want to do something with that. It was also a time when it was the right moment to be leaving the OECD, and yet I had fallen in love with Paris against my efforts not to. I didn't want to be the typical American who loves Paris, and then was intent on staying, and so left the OECD. Was admitted to the master's degree, found myself at this time, and then there's this tool, these tools now, the large frontier LLMs, and I said, okay, well, that's really interesting, because what I have in mind for this startup, which was originally, I was going to call it Why We Go, because it's not so much about where you're going, but why you want to go somewhere. Like, what's the intent of your trip? Why? And a marketing consultant very kindly helped me point in another direction from that name. But LLMs are good at taking kind of what I would say is kind of like messy forms of human expression and turning them into searches that a computer can execute.
Yeah.
And so there was that side of it, and the other side of it was that I could use ChatGPT at the time to try to build it myself. And so had not ever touched a line of code before 2025, and found myself around February with ChatGPT, complete discovery, and so it was enabling in two directions, in the building, and also in the idea of what you can make the product be.
Yeah. So as a leveler, so you didn't need to hire an engineer or raise funds and then hire an engineer or find a technical co-founder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, because on the topic of technical co-founders, I maybe should say again, like, I'm a very newcomer to the travel industry and to the entrepreneurial space. So, all of this is learnings that I've done from a fire hose over the past, 12 to 14 months. And some of the different entrepreneur groups or discussions that I've been in, there's always this question of, technical co-founder. And sense that some people from an earlier wave of entrepreneurship went through a period where that was necessary. And today, I won't say that what I've developed with Elyo is perfect by any stretch, but the barrier to entry was that much lower, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally understand where you're coming from. So, I mean, let's talk about Elyo. Let's talk about it. So, what's the business? What's the product?
Yeah, so Elyo is essentially a travel agent for the traveler. It's a conversational AI assistant. You can express what it is you want to do or what your constraints might be, and that can take so many different forms. It could be, I want to go to the beach. What's the cheapest weekend this summer to go to a beach from my home city? Or it could be, I have friends spread across, friends spread across a few different cities from an Erasmus or from having made an international move, or my family's over here. We want to meet up. Which of our 3 or 4 cities is the cheapest one for us all to rendezvous in? There's so many of these optimization questions that you can do when you have some flexibility in terms of time or destination. And there is a cheapest flight or cheapest solution out there. You just need to do all the searches. And Elyo understands what the optimization goal is, executes all the searches, and then brings them back and presents them to the user in a way that that's I would say like a rich visual experience. Because kind of some of them, I think what we've seen from like the very earliest examples of say Claude or ChatGPT giving opinions about flights or prices is that it will frequently put them back in text. And that's not necessarily the most helpful way to compare flight prices. So Elyo has, in addition to the conversational component, you have these booking flows, or not booking flow because we don't actually handle the booking. We send users to the airline, but the flow of deciding, which flight amongst all the options or which destination first, and then amongst, the destinations, you've chosen one, which specific flight you want to take. That's another component that is kind of a unique point.
So would it be fair to say there isn't a user interface with 2 calendars where I click through dates and have to get it absolutely perfect and then hit search? Is it?
Yes, the days of the calendar, the 2 calendars and flipping through them are potentially behind us. It's not something you'll find on
Yes.
Elyo.
Yes. The date picker. Let's kill the date picker.
Yeah. Those calendars are, I mean, it's gotten us through the noughties and the 2010s, hasn't it? Those calendars. But in terms of like date flexibility, there's some really cool timelines where you kind of have all the different dates and the prices associated to each one shown to you, and then you can select. And so, yeah, it's been very interesting to try to see like what would an everyday traveler find to be the easiest way to interact with all the options that are available, and developing a UI that responds to that.
I see. So you mentioned this new user experience, UX, and that you're also quite new to the travel industry in terms of building something, but you've clearly been a traveler for a long time. And I was wondering, how have you found that build up of the app? Because you have an initial MVP and a product, as I understand it. On this pod, you referred to the episode with Eric, which was fantastic. We've also talked a little bit about distribution, airline distribution, how do you actually do that securely, and think issues such as trust and that booking process using perhaps some of the older technologies.
Mm.
Coming back to the question, how have you found building your app and product?
Well, so my perspective on this is essentially the airline, and for the moment, Elyo is focused on airlines and the travel component of a trip. Uh, in the future, the goal is to include trains and buses, all in the name of finding the cheapest way for people to get where they want to go or to do what they want to do. But what I've found in developing and also building the business case for Elyo is that the internet era, the period that we could say existed between early 2000s to 2020, 2021, or the pre-AI era. You have all these platforms that are available to you. You have metasearch, you have online travel agencies. One that I don't hear discussed that much, but I think is quite fascinating are like the deal hunter services like Going or formerly Scott's Cheap Flights or Jack's Flight Club, where you have these like people who are really good at finding cheap flights, and then they push out these emails to you. You subscribe and you can get more emails, and they find these great deals. I I found myself really enjoying that kind of approach because it's so proudly in service of creating value for customers, for travelers.
Mm-hmm.
And the last time I checked, Jack's Flight Club and Going, they essentially give you instructions on how to go find that flight and book it directly, And I love that because, in my opinion, the entity best placed to sell, service, and manage a flight booking is the airline. When you add layers of intermediaries, be it an online travel agency or somebody, you get into inefficiency, you get into additional costs. And I think the question of commissions through online travel agencies for flights is, uh, from what I've learned, quite low compared to hotels, say. But that commission is not really seen to the everyday traveler. And yet they do pay for it in whatever impact that has on the price of their hotel nights, for example. The hotel might share some of that cost with the traveler, but they might also, saddle the traveler with most of that cost. So it's not really free to use a free platform. From the time that I spent studying economics, I would, refer to the common saying of there being no such thing as a free lunch. When you go to major OTA 1 or 2, you are paying for it, just not directly.
I see. And how are things going in terms of early adopters? I mean, we'll put all of the links into the show notes and the newsletter to hopefully secure you some leads.
Thanks.
But what of the early customers? What's their feedback been? How's things been going?
So we launched the second version of Elyo in January. I did because I maybe haven't mentioned, but I'm working on the project alone for the moment.
Okay. Solopreneur, love it. Yeah.
Yes, solopreneur, which is that's a whole experience in itself. So I launched the second version in January. So far, there's not like enough data on the way people are using it to draw any very strong conclusions, especially because travel is so episodic, and when you use it, as might use it once or twice, and then you don't come back to it for a while. I'm hoping that over the summer here we see kind of more examples of people using it and giving their feedback on what could be improved or what could be more useful.
Yeah.
But the earliest adopters have been various friends or people in my immediate network, and they enjoy the idea of not paying a commission or not being kind of sold something. They enjoy the idea of having a travel agent that's working for them as the traveler, you know? So that's kind of the feedback I've received so far. The idea that you can discuss and then have this assistant help you understand the results, surface options that might be cheaper that you might not have considered, but also one of the goals, one of the features that will be coming soon is this idea of kind of presenting a real price in the sense of, if you're choosing between a legacy carrier or a low-cost carrier, and there's maybe the legacy is 20 euros more, but you need to take a bag. Well, maybe that legacy carrier includes your cabin bag, right? And the low cost doesn't. So ultimately, your price on the low cost carrier will be higher at the end of the day. And so one of the kind of mission statement goals of the platform that people have enjoyed and that has resonated with people is this idea that it's really trying to present the prices and the options available as clearly and as honestly as possible so that travelers make the most use out of their travel budgets.
No, I understand. I was wondering what a thought occurred to me while you were talking, that use case of having an intent, multiple people, and being able to ask for the cheapest city for these different people in different areas to meet up at. What popped in my mind while you were talking was corporate travel. I was wondering if you had considered the corporate travel use case, where not so much for an individual business development person who has going to an event with a fixed date to leave and perhaps come back, which wouldn't have much flexibility. Is most profitable tickets for the airlines is that kind of demand. But I was wondering if you'd thought about the corporate travel use case where you have a remote team. It's very, very common for businesses to have remote teams with people all over the world nowadays. And they often want to get together once a quarter, once every 6 months, at least once a year, face to face. And so imagine that travel booker or even the senior exec with a budget. Where shall we take the remote team this year? Where's the cheapest or best value city that makes sense for our distributed remote team? Have you thought about contact? I mean, I know you're a solopreneur, so it's like you must have a long to-do list all the time. But have you thought about the corporate side?
It's really interesting. Looking out from where I sit, I see kind of the Navans of the world and think that space would be very hard to ease into. Although I guess that's more about being able to manage kind of company policies on the way travel is booked and paid for and reported. So maybe slightly different questions at play there. But to answer your question more directly, yes, it's a very interesting and kind of relevant example of the use case. I think we're seeing kind of more and more of these teams that might be distance, different parts, working from different countries. And that idea that you can come together, and if you have the option to choose a specific week, or you can shift which week it might be or where you might go, you could probably, I'm sure there would be a way to find the cheapest option out there, right? And that's, yeah. So it's, in terms of going to market, my idea has been to really try to bring Elyo to kind of the nerdy people who know how to use Google Flights in a nerdy way,
Yeah.
like I have for many
Yeah.
years, and that would be the first kind of niche group that I would try to get a foothold with. But eventually, I could totally see the corporate travel use cases.
Yeah, man. I mean, the tools, I won't name the company, but I have used some corporate travel platforms before, some of the biggest ones. And I could not believe just how diabolical the user experience was. I have never seen, well, or experienced something that horrendous in terms
Yes,
of a booking workflow in corporate travel. And it wasn't my employer's fault. I just want to say that. Policy was the policy. It wasn't that complicated.
sure.
So yeah, I think. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, it made me think of, I had a close colleague in a former role, and when they were booking travel, once they showed me the platform that they were using, and I could not believe that existed in 2024. Let's say, just I don't know, it made no sense to me that you would. Why I couldn't understand why that platform would be as complicated as it was. But as you say, like corporate policy, like of course it's providing some answering some need for the company. So yeah.
And I mean, yeah, I want to sort of talk a little bit about your experience in terms of I won't get too technical. We can do, of course, on the travel tech pod. But in terms of your integration with different platforms, on previous episodes, we've been talking to some of the providers or people who've either worked on or know the systems like the GDS or NDC from IATA, but also some of the technology providers who offer white label tech stack solutions to airlines and others in the travel industry. I was just wondering, from a solopreneur startup app idea with a compelling use case, I think solving a real problem, what's been your approach, and how have you configured your product to integrate with one or more or any? I mean, what's your view on that integration piece?
It's really interesting because starting out, I remember in the very, very beginning, I had made an account to have some access to something called an API, which I had to look up what that meant, with one of the main three GDSs. And there was a portal and a key or some code that I had to imperatively never lose and never share. And it felt, let's say, like clunky, you know? And so over time,
I know.
And I've heard recently that one of the GDSs that had a developer portal, that is being closed, which I find to be quite a shame, because I think enabling businesses and startups to test an idea or an experiment with something before actually going, full in the development or in the commercialization of a product is something that's valuable to both the businesses and the consumers that might ultimately use that product. So, but that aside, I was then kind of led to look to different sources, some of these, as you say, like white label sources that are bringing together information from many different places. Sometimes like IATA certified. I don't even know the correct name, but I'm thinking of services like Duffel. I'm not sure if that will resonate with people.
Okay.
But the challenge that I found there was that it seemed that it was about, you could get access to booking more easily, but it seemed that I would be becoming the seller of record for that ticket, which I don't wish to do. I mean, I don't think ever, but definitely not at this stage. I do not wish to do that. And also, many of these services seem geared around making it easier for you, the startup with a new platform, a new interface, to get commission on sales or on traffic that you drive. And it's early days. I don't want to say Elyo will never be a company that receives any commission on traffic that we drive to an airline's website or to a hotel. I don't want to paint myself into a corner in that sense. But today, Elyo is a freemium service, meaning that our users know upfront what they're paying for. They enable the service to exist with their subscriptions. And that means that we don't need to rely on commissions, which means that we can always put the interest of the user as our North Star. And that's something that I cherish. It makes it nice to not have external investment and be bootstrapped, because I don't have to try to monetize that channel. So I think we started talking about the experience of accessing the data and how you do that. So to kind of bring it back, I just experimented a bit with the GDSs, found other solutions over time, third-party providers that kind of aggregate data, and then airline developer portals. And some airlines do it really, really well, and some do it less well.
Mm-hmm.
But if there are any airlines listening out there, what I would say is, making your price and fare data available to be shown in valuable ways to people, or in ways that add value to the discovery, comparison, and booking experience is it's everybody wins in that configuration.
Well, not the incumbents, perhaps, that don't win. But I think I really like the clarity of your premise. Is you are on the side of the traveler, and some of the other parts of the travel industry. If you look at if you're confused by the outcomes, then look at the incentives. And so, if the incentives are around working through a particular set of inventory, particular set of packages or flights or whatever it is that are at a certain price, preferred over the algorithmically optimal cheapest one, then the traveler's losing out, because that person at some point in the chain is acting in their own interest, and that's how the market's set up. Is not a bad thing. It just is how some incentives are set up. So I really like the clarity of your North Star.
But that's what makes this moment so interesting, right? Is that setup, the way my coffee really, excuse me, I, as a traveler, have always known the meta search, the OTA. I was, a millennial, right? So that's like the way that I book travel. I never went to a travel agent's office, but to hear other folks in the industry, I'm thinking of maybe some reporting from Skift, some conference discussions with different people that have been then rediffused.
We were just talking about the structure of the market, and there are these middle. I didn't call them middlemen, but there are these businesses at some point in the in the market, and they are under the structure of incentives for certain inventories. And then
Right. And so, thank you. And so where I was trying to go with that is that what I hear people from different perspectives, be they investment, entrepreneurship, corporate, that landscape, the shift is happening now, which is so cool to be able to see it, to try to influence it, to try to be a part of it. Something that I'm observing, and I'm sure many of your listeners have also observed, is that the OTAs are getting integrated as extensions or integrations into some of the major chat services. Which means if I'm a subscriber to Claude, let's say, I'm paying for Claude, and then I'm clicking through the OTA integration, and then the OTA is getting its commission, which I don't see, but is reflected in the price that I pay. That doesn't seem like the best way to make use of this opportunity that we have, that AI gives us, of not being bound to 10 blue links, but being able to ask a question and get a rich answer. And I'll come back yet again to the conversation that you had with Eric, and if he's listening, and if he's in Paris, it would be a delight to meet him for a coffee one day. But he was mentioning the kind of agent's role, and that in travel, the agent exists between the supplier, the carriers in the case of the airlines, and the buyer, the travelers such as yourself and myself, and that they play both sides. And as you mentioned earlier, like, that's the way the market works. It creates efficiencies and value, but this AI moment is giving us a chance to rewrite where that balance is. And I think what's very interesting, and other people have said this, but it almost enables a return to the day of a travel agent, like where you go into an office and you have a travel agent who helps you as the consumer pick a flight, pick a destination. AI is kind of enabling that. And I think it's up to us, those who are in the industry, those who are building right now, to decide, do you use this moment to create value for the end parties, the consumer and the supplier? And I think that makes us all, except for the intermediaries, as we said earlier, but I think that makes the consumers and the suppliers better off when that relationship is more direct.
I mean, it's almost like it is going back to in the UK, we call it the high street, but walking down the high street into the travel agent, and you're sitting down in one of those not very comfortable chairs in front of a desk, and there's somebody sat there with a great big screen, and you can't see it, and they're going to type in some codes. But what I think what we're describing is because I never did that either, but when people did that, maybe they didn't have dates or specific destinations in mind. They would talk to the person behind the desk and say, "Oh, I've got 2 friends. I'd like to go somewhere hot. Beach, is it beachside or city? Oh, actually city, maybe with a beach as well." And it's a conversation, isn't it? And so I think maybe we have come full circle, and what you're talking about and your product is actually bringing us back to sitting down, having a conversation. What's the intent?
And what is fascinating about it to me is that you get the best of the personalization and the advice that an agent, be it human or be it a computer in the case of AI, that offers you. And you get what I call the democratizing effect that the Google Flights and the Sky Scanners and the OTAs of the world created by, okay, at some point, you didn't need to go to the travel agent, whom you also pay, of course, who takes their commission. You could do it yourself, which created efficiency, which created value for consumers. Fantastic. And now with AI, because you don't need to pay a human to do that advisory role, the same way that AI is making it so that you don't need to pay frontline developers to do the basic or the kind of entry level portion of the development of an app. You're, in my opinion, getting the best of the democratization that you had from the meta search engines and the personalization that came in the era before that with travel agents, physical travel agents. Yeah.
It's so cool. Yeah, no, I absolutely love it. And just one more idea before we wrap it up. We had Mike Putnam on the pod a few weeks ago from Custom Travel Solutions, and he pitched a concept around brands because what Custom Travel Solutions do is a white labeling of tech stacks for businesses or anybody, developers such as yourself, all the way up to the big companies. But his concept that he floated in that discussion was around the use of brands and brand trust, and the concept of a sports team having their own solution data set where the intent, me and three friends and I would like to meet in Barcelona for this Champions League match. Or, I mean, I'm a Tottenham Hotspur fan, so
it's
there are a few, I know,
to be
it's
a
brutal.
Tottenham Hotspur fan.
I do not have a need to book flights for European matches right now. It's been a painful season for me this year, so I don't need to worry about that.
I'm an Atletico de Madrid fan, so it's an interesting couple of weeks for me, but not as difficult a season as I think Tottenham has had. Sorry.
That's okay. No need to apologize. It's all good. So let's. Where your business is Elyo, Christopher. It's been amazing. But what is the website address? How can people reach you and the business and try it out? I imagine they'll get very personalized early service and interaction with you if they're interested. So how can they reach you?
Absolutely. So the website is elyo.io. So that's ELYO.io. You can visit it. You can create an account for free. You can experience chatting with Elyo and comparing flight prices there on the website. And me, I'm available at christopher@elyo.io is my email address. And I didn't have a chance earlier, but the name Elyo, it's inspired by the Greek god Helios that makes the sun come up, every day.
Yeah.
And the connection there is, and I think you've probably experienced this, and I think most people listening will have experienced this, but when you take a flight that's kind of, at that early part of the morning and you're at 30-something thousand feet and you have the sun just start to come over the horizon, it's like you've cracked an egg on the horizon and it's just the most beautiful view, I think there's still a part of me that's like the small kid that is inspired just by the magic of traveling by air, and the magic of how airports work and all the different systems that come together to get 100 and something people on a narrow body jet into the air and to their loved ones or to their next exploration or opportunity. And I think, that's why I've created Elyo to enable those magical moments for as many people for as little cost as possible.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Christopher. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.